Well, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and thank you all very much for your patience. We are adding extra chairs, as you can see, and so that we can accommodate people that are coming in. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the Montana World Affairs Council to our program tonight. It's the beginning of our fall season. My name is Mark Johnson. I'm the founder of the World Affairs Council of Montana. I should mention that the Council now has been in existence for over 10 years. We've done about 180 programs, and one of the reasons we're able to keep going and doing these kinds of events is because of the support from you, from the community. So we very much appreciate it. Tonight we have a very distinguished visitor, the Consul General of Turkey, Hakan Tekin, who is here from Los Angeles. And it will be through him and thanks to him that we will learn about a very important country, Turkey. And as you will hear, Turkey plays a very important strategic role in a very important strategic part of the world. That would be the Middle East. And Turkey is a valuable ally and a country that we all should learn as much as possible about in terms of their interests, their concerns, and their relationships with their neighbors. One of the things that the Montana World Affairs Council has done is to develop a program with a private organization called the Turkish Cultural Foundation. And it seeks to promote awareness and understanding of Turkey for Americans. Specifically, every year they send teachers, American teachers, Montana teachers, to Turkey for a wonderful experience. And I think we have a few, if I'm not mistaken, if you could just raise, or stand up. They, I think, will say to you that they've had a wonderful experience. And they help their economy, and yes, Patty, I believe that's true. So we thank the foundation for that. And the Consul General has been in Los Angeles for 3 years as the Consul General. He has a wealth of foreign service experience, diplomatic experience. In the foreign ministry in Ankara, he has had portfolios ranging from culture to human rights to Central Asia. His overseas postings have included places like the Persian Gulf, Eastern Europe, and the United Nations in New York. Having been with him for a couple of days now, I would say it's clear to me that Turkey has sent one of its best diplomats to this country. I know there are probably others, but I think my experience is that he really is, I think, among the best of his generation. So we are very fortunate to have him. He is a native of Ankara, attended the University of Ankara. He lives in Los Angeles. He has a wife and a son. He's given up a lot of time to be with us. So, would you please welcome him on his first visit to Montana?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador Johnson, for this remarkable introduction. I don't think I deserve those kind words, but thank you. And thank you also for your leadership to World Affairs Council. I know you're the founder of World Affairs Council of Montana, an excellent organization, doing fantastic job here in Montana. And together with the other leadership in the council, I've been really privileged to be a part of your event. And thanks to you, I am in Montana. Montana happens to be one of the 12 states which is within the responsibility of our consulate. Of course, it's a big area. It's almost the half of the country, U.S. And, you know, traveling is not so easy, and we are a rather small mission we have in Los Angeles. And so I try to make most of such visits when the opportunity comes. And I have had really nice contacts, met really nice people so far in Missoula. And tomorrow also I'll continue my contacts. I'll be meeting the governor. I'll be visiting the high school, Hellgate, with this nice name. And I look forward to that. And I hope that although I have about a year left in my position in Los Angeles, I hope that I would find the opportunity to come back again. Now, I will speak a little bit about Turkey, especially the Turkish foreign policy, of course. And I will try to limit my statement to about 25 minutes or half an hour. And I would like to devote more time to your questions. I'll do my best to answer any questions you may have regarding Turkey, regarding what I have said, or some other issues which interest you. I would like to start with a quote from a statement made by a former U.S. ambassador in Turkey, Ross Wilson, at a hearing of the House Committee on the Foreign Affairs last July. I think this is very indicative of understanding Turkey or approaching Turkey. And it's rather a very recent comment. I quote, Turkey is a fascinating, sometimes frustrating, often confusing and very important country in a key part of the world for the US. Figuring it out is a challenge. It is tempting but always misleading to see black and white where grays are dominant colors. Turkey is one of those countries where the more you know, the less you understand. Of course, I hope after this event you would have a more understanding of Turkey, but this is really a very valid statement about Turkey. We are not a country which could be easily understood. And we are in a region which has been interesting for a long time, and we have been even now passing through really difficult challenges. For example, in the East, Iranian nuclear issue remains unresolved and very much high on the agenda, even these days, which has been talked in New York during the General Assembly of the United Nations. In the south of our country, Iraq has yet to be secured from instability. Efforts to resolve the Arab-Israeli conflict remain stalled, and Turkish-Israeli relations are also passing through some challenging times. In the north of our country, the Caucasus continues to be a potential source of conflict, renewed conflicts. And in the west, we also have rather less serious than these concerns, but for instance, in the southeast Europe, Bosnia remains to be further stabilized, and some other regional issues we have. And on all these issues, we play an important, if not central role, and which all remain also, these issues, high on the agenda of U.S. foreign policy. And against this background of these challenges, Turkish-American partnership is as important as ever. And so it may be appropriate to start from Turkish-U.S. relations. During his first bilateral overseas trip to Turkey in April 2009, President Obama chose the term model partnership to describe Turkish-American relationship. And to better understand the term, maybe we should look at the unique characteristic of Turkey and U.S. Turkey is a secular and a predominantly Muslim country and has multiple identities, regional identities, and with an increasingly assertive stand in global affairs. United States, of course, is the leader of the Western world that holds direct responsibility for global stability as the sole superpower. And being a global actor and drawing its strength not only from our military might, but also more from economic and scientific supremacy and core values like democracy, human rights, rule of law, pluralistic society. And to sustain this standing, the United States needs to put more emphasis on her soft power and alliances with the regional powers. And Turkey, on the other hand, is a unique standing, drawing her strength from her geographic location as well as from its unique history. Spanning Asia and Europe, we neighbor Africa through the Eastern Mediterranean. And its rich history makes Turkey an actor which shares a common heritage and close cultural links with many different regions, countries, and people. And the merging of the unique characteristics of both actors, Turkey and US, makes this relationship invaluable. And we work together to ease the cultural tensions between the East and the West, and also the economic tensions between the North and the South. And we need each other, Turkey and the United States, for maintaining global, regional and global order and peace. In view of this, we can say that our success in our foreign policy, especially in the recently towards our neighborhood, is a powerful antidote to the preachers of clash of civilizations. Thus, the term model partnership emphasizes the importance of close cooperation between Turkey and the United States based on these common values. We have an ambitious agenda, of course, to further enhance our relationship also in the field of economic and commerce. But unfortunately, we have a lot of ground to cover in this field. Our total bilateral trade figure of about $10 billion last year does not remains far from reflecting the true potential. Just as an example, Russian Federation, we have about 4 times more trade than US. So we have to cover the ground in this field. And the idea of a model partnership maybe might sound a little bit naive to some, especially after the Turkish no vote on sanctions against Iran in the UN Security Council last June. And various op-eds and comments arguing that there was a shift of axis in Turkish foreign policy. But we believe that, on the contrary, these differences of opinions are rather temporary, and they do not cast a shadow on the fundamentals of our alliance. Turkish-American relationship has withstood the test of time, and we have diversified and enriched its strategic texture. Methodological differences on certain issues do not invalidate our shared principles. And we have been able to leave difficulties behind us in the recent past as well, be it regarding Cyprus in the 1970s or Iraq in the early 2000s, and to continue our strategic cooperation with fresh perspectives. There's a lot to do between two countries. And the discussion on the so-called shift of axis in Turkish foreign policy, basically the allegation that Turkey is moving towards East, it is moving away from West, is, we believe, simply wrong. The arguments and the questions which have been raised miss some fundamental facts. Our Western vocation is an irreversible process. Those who know Turkish history would well know that the Westernization wave in Turkey started well before even the establishment of our republic. When you look at the history of Turkey, even in the Ottoman Empire, you can trace back to the modernization efforts, Westernization efforts to early 19th century or even late 18th century. And we view our goal of course, EU accession as the main pillar of our commitment to democracy, freedom and free market economy. And our membership in NATO, on the other hand, constitutes the backbone of our national security. We have made considerable progress in our quest to achieve membership in EU. And our relationship with the EU is at a critical point right now. We would have completed most of the negotiation chapters. As you may know, Turkey has been involved with accession negotiations with EU since the year 2005. We would have completed that process if we had not faced some political obstacles created by certain EU countries. But I should make one thing very clear. In view of all these debates about shift of axis, Turkey moving away from West, that our policy towards the countries in our region, which is widely known as coined by our foreign minister, zero problems with the neighbors, is inclusive and not based on ideology or religion or any other similar concept. Thanks to this policy, we have accomplished quite impressive and positive changes in our relations with all the countries in our neighborhood. And only 4 of these countries are Muslim majority countries. To give a few examples on this policy, on the results of this policy, our trade volume with our neighbors increased by 6-fold over the last 7 years. We established high-level strategic council meetings with Greece, Syria, Iraq, and Russia. Progress was achieved in relations with Armenia, which we had serious problems stemming from history. Our relations with Azerbaijan, Georgia are quite strong, and we lifted visa requirements with many countries in our region, including Russia, Syria, Albania, Lebanon, Jordan, Libya, and recently with Serbia. At the same time, we have increased our profile and involvement in promoting peace and stability in our neighboring regions. And this is because we are not immune from the consequences of these conflicts in our region. In fact, we are usually the first country which has been affected. For instance, the war in Iraq, the conflict in Palestine, disputes in Lebanon, hostilities between Russia and Georgia, the conflict in Bosnia, in Azerbaijan, between Azerbaijan and Armenia, the Iranian nuclear issue. They all had a direct or indirect impact on Turkey. Therefore, we can no longer observe events as a idle bystander. The high stakes warrant an active policy to prevent the further escalation of these conflicts. And it's with this understanding that we made serious efforts to reconcile disputing parties in our region and beyond, including between Afghans and Pakistanis, between Iraqi Sunnis and Shiites, between the disputing parties in Lebanon, until recently between Israel and Syria. And we can expand these examples. And these efforts are necessary for our own security and for the stability of our neighboring regions, and serve the interest of the West as well, because this point is usually missed. Our efforts to find a diplomatic solution to the Iranian nuclear issue or to the differences in Bosnian parties should be seen from this perspective. Moreover, we believe our relations with other global actors are complementary. It is not at the expense of some other party. When we develop more relations with countries in our region, it doesn't mean that we are neglecting our relations with the West. To the contrary, they complement each other, and they are not mutually exclusive. And therefore, developing our relations with Syria or Russia or any other country in our region does not indicate a shift of axis. And our membership in various organizations, or our presence in, for instance, in the United Nations Security Council as a temporary member, or as a member in the G20, Organization of Islamic Conference, Council of Europe, NATO, OECD, all are complementary. For instance, an interesting fact, not only the Secretary General of the Organization of Islamic Countries, OIC, is a Turkish national, but also the chairman of the Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe is from Turkey. And just recently, the number 2 of NATO, the Deputy Secretary General, has been appointed, a Turkish national has been appointed as number 2 in NATO. So this fact alone also explains the complex nature of Turkey and our success in terms of establishing meaningful relations with various cultures and regions. And viewing this multifaceted foreign policy as a shift of axis is not only inaccurate, but also does an injustice to our sincere efforts to achieve peace and stability, and to engage in more trade and increase interdependency and solve conflicts through peaceful means in our region. Let me skip these a little bit. Yeah, let me offer some thoughts on recent crisis over the humanitarian aid convoy to the Gaza Strip last May, and also on some thoughts on the Iranian nuclear issue before completing. Let me start with Gaza, the infamous Mavi Marmara incident. Turkey was the first predominantly Muslim country to recognize Israel in 1949. And it was, in fact, the second country after the United States who recognized Israel. Our cooperation has continued uninterrupted for over 6 decades. In fact, it's further expanded in the mid-90s. And this good relations between Turkey and Israel was only the recent episode in a long history of friendship between Turks and Jews. We're talking about a record of 5 centuries of friendship here, a friendship which we inherited from our forefathers. And there has been, however, some serious damage in this friendship after the Israeli attack last May on the Gaza aid convoy, which left 9 Turkish civilians dead, one of them an American citizen as well. This is the first time in the history of Republic of Turkey that civilian Turkish citizens were killed by a sovereign state during peacetime. And this attack did not come from a traditionally hostile nation to Turkey. It came from a friend, Israel. And the issue at hand is simple, according to us, as much as it is tragic. 9 people have died, all civilians, and the event happened on international waters. And I don't want to go into details of this, but some basic factual information might give an idea. The Gaza convoy was not an initiative of the Turkish government. It was a purely NGO initiative. It was a civilian. It was not a Turkish convoy, in fact. It was an international effort. There were some 600 activists from 32 countries. And among the convoy's activists were Nobel Peace Prize winners, European lawmakers, religious and spiritual leaders from various faiths, business leaders, journalists. And the attack by the Israeli Defense Forces happened on international waters, as I said, 72 miles off the nearest coast to Israel, in clear violation of international law. And after the incident, we held the view that Israel must accept her wrongdoing and apologize to the Turkish people for those killings. And we also underlined the need for Israel to accept an internationally independent inquiry as decided by the United Nations Security Council presidential statement. And the incident, although tragic for us, because we lost 9 of our citizens, sparked an interest in the humanitarian situation in Gaza and the unsustainability of the blockade, ongoing blockade on Gaza. And it raised questions about the legitimacy and happily the eventual relaxation of the blockade. We believe that Israel's current policy is leading the country towards global isolation. And Israel also is on the verge of losing one of her closest friends, Turkey. And that we believe at this moment there is not much to do on our side. The ball is on the court of Israel. And we hope and we expect that Israel change its current policy towards the Palestinian problem, especially in Gaza. And in fact, the Palestinian problem lies at the core of many problems across the globe. And as President Obama has rightfully highlighted, the continuation of the Palestinian conflict provides ammunition to radicals from Pakistan to Afghanistan, from Iraq to elsewhere in the Middle East, and also even in this country, US. So we should proceed towards a comprehensive peace in the Middle East based on a 2-state solution, living side by side in peace and stability, and in cooperation rather than in conflict, in welfare rather than poverty. And we're happy that the peace negotiations have resumed recently, and we hope that a breakthrough could be reached between the parties. And lastly, on Iran, it is another hot topic that has a bearing on the Turkish-US relations. At the outset, I should say that we are against a nuclear Iran. We don't want nuclear weapons around our neighbors. As you know, Iran is a neighboring country. However, at the same time, we do not believe in the effectiveness of sanctions. In the past, we have suffered from sanctions imposed on other countries in our region. They did not produce the desired impact on the targeted regimes. It will be Turkey that will be hardest hit by sanctions, or even worse, the use of force. If we're asked to bear the burden, we should also be given a chance to engage in an effective dialogue with Iran. So maybe we can be seen as the only country within the Western world that can effectively communicate with the Iranian regime. And we have been working for a diplomatic solution, but also in coordination with our US allies and other Western counterparts. We are not against Western interests. On the contrary, we're trying to convince Iran to agree to the demands of the international community. Thus, we have worked towards the same objectives. With the Tehran Declaration of May 17, which was reached between Turkey, Brazil, and Iran, we have fulfilled almost all of the preconditions that were relayed to us regarding Iran. You might have heard about the letter that was sent by President Obama to Brazilian President 2 months before that declaration. And the declaration covers almost all concerns addressed in that letter. Therefore, we would have expected a more positive response from our friends and allies. However, as you know, shortly after that deal was reached, a resolution was submitted to the United Nations Security Council on further strengthening sanctions against Iran. And with the understanding, which I briefly mentioned, on our efforts towards engaging Iran, we voted against this resolution together with Brazil, the only 2 countries in the Security Council. And by doing this, we chose to give diplomacy a chance, because with this, we kept the Tehran deal on the table. And when you look back at the events from now, I think that was the right decision, because now talks again started between Iran and the Western countries, the EU especially, and Tehran, the deal, which was brokered by Turkey and Brazil, is an important element of those talks. But if we had voted for those strengthening of the sanctions, that deal would not be on the table now. And one last point, we do not argue that the deal which we brokered solves all problems and addresses all concerns of the issue. But we believe it offered an important opportunity, a window of opportunity for peaceful resolution of the problem. It should be seen as a confidence building measure, and not an opportunity not to be missed. So that was our understanding in that. I started with a quote. Maybe it would be appropriate to end with another quote. This time another quote from another American official, President Obama, who in his visit to Turkey last year eloquently expressed Turkey's unique capacity to build bridges between cultures and nations, with the following words in his speech at the Turkish parliament. I quote, "I know there are those who like to debate Turkey's future. They see your country at the crossroads of continents and touched by the currents of history. They know that this has been a place where civilizations meet and different peoples mingle. And they wonder whether you will be pulled in one direction or another. Here's what they don't understand. Turkey's greatness lies in your ability to be at the center of things. This is not where East and West divide. This is where they come together. In the beauty of your culture, in the richness of your history, in the strength of your democracy, in your hopes for tomorrow." Thank you for your attention, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have about Turkey. Thank you. I hope I didn't bore you. Okay.
Do you think it would be a good idea to have international peacekeepers keeping the peace between Israel and Lebanon and Palestine?
Well, at some point it could be, but before that there should be an agreement reached between two parties on the basic parameters of a peace. So in order to have peacekeepers, first we should have a peace. That's the problem. We should have an agreement. We should have a common ground. And the parties now, and together with the other third parties, including US, are working on that. In fact, when you look at the Israeli-Palestinian issue, the parameters are not so, you don't have to be very creative. The basic parameters of peace are very well known, very well, long time negotiated. It's just, I think, we need some courageous leadership, visionary leadership from both sides, and of course political will in terms of standing by the commitments and respecting, of course, abiding by the peaceful means to achieve their aims. That's the central thing, I believe.
Hi. What do you think is the biggest hurdle Turkey faces in joining the EU?
Yeah, the biggest hurdle we face, I believe, is the prejudices. It is not about meeting the criteria, although I should say that we don't claim that we are 100% meeting at this moment, at least, the full membership criteria. But on the other hand, when you look at the recent expansion of EU, some current members in the last expansion of the Union, if you look at some of the newer members of the EU, in many fields they're no better than Turkey, but they were rushed into membership, so to speak. However, when it comes to Turkey, we have been waiting in the waiting room for more than 40 years. Our relationship is almost as old as the founding treaty of the European Union, the Treaty of Rome. And there are some contractual obligations from our European friends. There has been a full membership perspective has been given to Turkey. And despite that, the accession negotiation has been started. And despite all this reality, when we hear that, some leaders of some European countries like the French president or the German chancellor saying that Turkey does not belong to Europe, Turkey should never be given a full membership, the most it can get is a privileged partnership, those are unacceptable for us. Privileged partnership, for instance, we are already a privileged partner of European Union. What has been going on recently in some of our European friends' unfair attitude towards EU has resulted in the waning support for EU membership. Just a very recent public opinion survey showed that the support in the Turkish public for European Union, which was around 70% in 2005, the year when the accession negotiations started, is now less than 50%, 48%. Maybe in 5-10 years, Turkey might not be interested at all in EU membership. But at the moment, it is still our priority. We want to be a full member, but it's not us to decide for that.
In what ways can Montana develop economically?
Yeah, that's a very nice question. In fact, one of the aims of my visit to Montana, to any state I visit, that's on my agenda item, and I'm planning to discuss that with the governor tomorrow. Of course, Montana is not one of the bigger states in the U.S. We don't have now much trade relationship with Turkey. I'll see in what fields we can do. I know that there's some mining industry here, or some forest industry here, which might create, or energy sector. I heard that Governor Schweitzer is very much interested in energy sector, and on the other hand, Turkey is also a keen country on that field. Those sectors, there could be some sort of cooperation. Yeah.
wondering, with Turkey at the center of the East-West, North-South, what institutions internally are best positioned to sort of mediate these conflicts?
Institutions? It's not the, I mean, the media. No, the army, the military, they don't, in fact, they are not involved in such mediating activities. It's the government who is involved in international, if there's any international mediation activity, it's carried out by the government, by the foreign ministry, or by any member of the government who has been assigned to do so by the prime minister or our president at the highest level. But at the same time, civil society in Turkey is also becoming increasingly vibrant and influential, and they have also made important contributions. For instance, Turkey and Greece, we have traditionally we had serious problems throughout our history. The civil society, the media in both countries, they have made immense contributions in better understanding between the two nations. A similar example could be given for Turkey and Armenia. Now we don't have diplomatic relations with Armenia, but there's been a very active civil society relationship which is bringing together the peoples and which is helping better understanding each other or eradicating some prejudices. Because when you don't know your enemy, so to speak, you have some prejudgment, maybe some prejudices, and with ignorance, those prejudices could easily be manipulated or be strengthened. But when you have people-to-people contacts, then you understand, especially, for instance, with Turks and Greeks, we share a lot in common. We can get along very well. Same is true for Turks and Armenians, or Turks and Greek Cypriots. So increasing people-to-people contacts is key element in achieving lasting peace between our nations, and that's in fact one of the driving force behind the Turkish policy of lifting visa requirements from the countries in our region, so that we should increase contacts, people-to-people contacts that would have more long-term. Maybe it would not happen in a very short time, but it will have a more strong effect on the future of our relationship. We don't want isolation.
Do you think you would be hindered on an economic level if the EU takes too long? And if so, what measures would Turkey take?
Sorry, can you repeat the first part?
Do you think you would be hindered on an economic level if the EU takes too long in accepting Turkey?
I don't think so. Let me give you an example. Turkey's economy has undergone a remarkable growth, especially since 2002. Between 2002 until 2008, our economy grew on an annual basis 7%, one of the fastest growing economy in the world. And unfortunately, due to the global recession, it slowed down to 3% in 2008. And last year, we had a negative development. Our economy shrunk around 4.7%. But that was because of the global crisis, which had similar effects everywhere. But this year, for instance, we rebounded from that crisis. And the first 2 quarters, we had double-digit growth. The same growth rate we had with China, which is, the fastest growing economy in the world. So we have been doing this. Our GDP has been growing one of the fastest rates in the world without being a member to EU. Our foreign trade quadrupled in 7 years without being an EU member. Our investors have been increasingly visible all around the world without EU membership. So I don't think, as I mentioned before, EU with its current policies, it is becoming increasingly irrelevant, not only for Turkey but also in our wider region or in the globally. They are looking at the things in a more selfish, more parochial way. I think they need a more visionary approach, both towards Turkey and on some other issues.
With that in mind, what are the reasons that Turkey wants to be a member of the EU?
Well, as I said, we see that as the ultimate step of our westernization efforts. It's more now on a symbolic step, maybe. It's more because EU has also evolved. Before, as you know, EU members got a lot of subsidies, new members. Now they are changing those rules. Being an EU member would not bring a lot of funds to Turkey as it brought incredible amount of subsidies to Greece, for instance, when they became member in late 1980. It is more of a, it would be the ultimate approval of the Western identity of Turkey. We see that as a civilizational project.
What do you think are the long-term objectives of the Iranian government?
Well, it's hard to tell because, as I said several times today in different occasions, Iran has a very complex government structure. There's the president, there's the clerical leadership, the Revolutionary Guard. There are some people behind the scenes without any official title, but having quite strong influence. So it is hard to tell. But what we can do is take what they say at their face value. If Iran says, if the Iranian government says that we don't want nuclear weapons, because that's what they say, they claim that their nuclear program is peaceful. They're not after nuclear arms. So we have to work with Iran, engaging them in a way that they should act what they say. And for that, of course, there's always two sides of the coin. They have their own approach, their own perception of events, and they are being, they feel that they're not being respected much, because Iran is an old civilization. It is its history is it goes back to 2,500 years back, and they have a pride. So they want to be seen as a legitimate player, not to be seen as a country where it can be easily threatened or dictated what to do or what not to do. And seeing the recent events in our region, maybe they feel that they have to push in some direction, the nuclear issue, for instance, to get as much leverage as possible. What we have to do is to engage them as much as we can, to integrate them to the international system through negotiations.
Could you comment on the recent changes in the Turkish constitution and what effects that has on Turkey's position?
Yeah, well, this was a domestically very polarized issue, very political, in fact. Basically, when you look at the constitutional changes, it was a package. It covered areas, I think 25 or 26 articles of the constitutions were changed. Almost all of them were non-controversial, like expanding the rights of the child, further strengthening gender equality, increasing privacy laws, abolishing the military courts, that they can prosecute some civilians, or changing, scrapping up, in fact, a constitutional article that brought immunity to the leaders of the military regime back in 1980. So they can be prosecuted now after those in general, all those changes were made towards expanding the rule of law, human rights, democracy in Turkey. The most contentious issues on that package, in fact, was one bringing a change to the structure of Constitutional Court, which is our Supreme Court. It expanded its membership, and it also allowed Parliament to elect some members of that Constitutional Court. This was presented by the opposition as government's another plan to increase its power through appointing judges to the Supreme Court, the Constitutional Court, to the judges which share their political views. But when you look at the current, the previous wording of the law, it was elected by the president, selected by the president by recommendations of some judicial bodies. Now, of course, president is also elected by the parliament. So overall, it's parliament has the power, either through president or by itself. And what the government says is that those changes brought to the structure of either to the Constitutional Court or to the higher body of judges and prosecutors. We have such a body which is dealing with the internal affairs of the judicial system. It is perfectly in line with the EU regulations, EU law. In fact, there's a mechanism called the Venice Commission within the EU, which envisages certain parameters, certain standards for human rights, especially in terms of judicial process or in terms of political representation. And the government says that these changes brought were, in fact, word by word, the conditions which were recommended by that European body. But like many issues, it was politically polarized, and so it turned out to some opposition leaders tried to turn this into a sort of vote of confidence on the government, and eventually those package was adopted by 58% of the people voting. And this also, of course, having said this, this doesn't mean that the government has 58% support of the public now, because many people who have no support, no sympathy to the current government supported these constitutional package because they saw that as a measure for increasing the standards of Turkish democracy and further increasing the civilian control of the state affairs.
What is the position of Turkey in the current affairs of Cyprus?
Cyprus. Yeah, well, our position on that issue is very clear. We want this issue to be resolved in terms of UN parameters. You know, there's a long history of negotiations on that issue, and it's more or less similar to the Palestinian issue. You don't have to be very creative. There are the certain principles of a viable peace. It's very well known by all parties, and there should be a political will. As you may, if you remember, back in 2004, there was a plan put forward by the UN Secretary General at the time, Kofi Annan. It was called as Annan Plan. So after the negotiation process at the time, he created a document, a peace document, which found a middle way between the positions of the parties. And it was put on to vote on both sides of the island, while Turkish Cypriots overwhelmingly adopted that. by around 68%, if I'm not mistaken. The Greek Cypriots, unfortunately, rejected by 70-something, 73%. So this left the Turkish Cypriot in a very interesting situation. They wanted this agreement to happen, although not all of them was acceptable to them. But as a middle ground, they wanted this deal to follow through. But the Greek Cypriot side did not accept. And what happened after that? The Greek Cypriots were taken as full membership to European Union in 2005. And there were some, and the Greek Cypriot side after that totally lost any motivation of making any concessions, because they were now EU member. They can even have a leverage to block Turkey's membership. And this was a big mistake, which was later acknowledged by many European leaders, giving Greek Cypriot government full membership before the resolution of the situation. Now, since the last 2 years, the negotiation process has been revived. There are still ongoing talks between the two parties. Our government supports these talks, and we want these talks to bring a result as soon as possible. In fact, we are pushing the international community and the United Nations as well to have a result not too far away, before the end of this year. But on the other hand, the Greek Cypriot stand on this issue is they don't want any deadlines, because they have the luxury of the EU membership. They are also recognized as representing the whole of the island, so they are not. They don't have any motivation left. It is at a standstill, although the negotiations are still going on. We'll see what will happen.
You mentioned earlier about impressive economic growth. Long-term economic growth and stability is very much tied to energy resources. And other than coal, what other resources does Turkey have? Do you have natural gas, oil? You don't.
No.
Who do you depend on to supply that to Turkey?
Yeah, unfortunately, we are, in terms of energy resources, a poor country. We have no significant neither oil nor natural gas in our country, despite the energy-rich countries all around us. I think that's faith. But apart from coal, we don't have any energy resources. So we import almost all our oil and natural gas. Natural gas, 2/3 of the natural gas we buy from Russia, and the remaining from Iran and Azerbaijan and Egypt and Qatar. Our oil, the biggest resource is Iraq, Iran, and Russia. To diversify these resources, we are involved in big pipeline projects, international pipeline projects. Nabucco, for instance, is one of the most famous, more well-known projects. It would bring the hydrocarbon resources from the Caspian bases, if completed, and from Central Asia, through Turkey to Europe and to Middle East, to other countries in Middle East, which are having shortage of energy resources. But it has not been moving on as desired, in a desired way. And also, in the recent years, we have started working on alternative energy resources. The geothermal energy, for instance, we have rich potential for that, or wind energy, but they are still in the early stages. We don't have a nuclear reactor. Our government is working on building a new nuclear reactor, again, to diversify our energy resources. But we don't have any meaningful, among the main energy resources, oil, natural gas, we don't have any of them.
mentioned history, and I can recall in history that at one time your country was all Christian. The fact is, they had their second pope, the Catholic Church, over there. But now it's no longer that way, and I wonder if Christianity is tolerated over there now with all the things that they have.
I don't know what you mean by our country once was Christian. We, as our nation, Turks, of course, there were always some Turks having believing in Christianity and Christian faith, but overwhelming majority of our nation has always been, of course, after coming to Central Asia, because our origins are from Central Asia, after coming to Anatolia, converted to Muslim, and we have always been overwhelming majority Muslim. If you mean our country as the Byzantine Empire, where the current Turkey is, of course it was a Christian empire, but they were not Turks, they were mainly Greeks. Having said that, yes, although we are more or less a homogeneous society in terms of religion, 99.5% of our population is Muslim. We have a tiny minority of Christians, Armenians and Greeks, as well as Jews. And they enjoy their religious freedoms. In fact, these three communities are officially recognized as minorities by the founding treaty of Turkish Republic, Treaty of Lausanne. In implementation, sometimes there are problems, yes, especially with regard to, for instance, the Greek community. We have the issue of the seminary, the Halki Seminary. It has been closed by the government in 1971 after a law organizing, putting all religious institutions, closing all religious institutions and attaching them to the higher education body, to the Ministry of Education. Of course, the Greek church did not accept that, and it was closed. But this is an issue which sometimes comes to the agenda, and it is more an issue between Turkey and Greece, because our Turkish minority in Greece also has similar problems in terms of practicing their religion. For instance, their religious leader, muftis, their elected leaders are not recognized by the Greek government. The Greek government appoints another mufti, which is not being recognized by the Turkish minority there. So we have some problems. But Turkey has progressed a lot in the recent years. So we have a much more liberal look to that, and I believe when you look at the recent events in Turkey, for instance, there's a monastery in the Black Sea part in Trabzon, Sümela Monastery, for almost 100 years. It's used as a museum now. Not a religious service was carried out there, and the government gave this year a special permit. So after almost 100 years, a religious service was carried out by the Greek Orthodox Church there in Istanbul, in Trabzon, but by the church in Istanbul. And also another example in that sense could be given just last weekend. An Armenian church on an island in the eastern part of Turkey, Ahtamar. It was in fact in ruins for many years. The Ministry of Culture renovated it, and after almost another 100 years, first time a religious service was carried out there by the Armenian church in Istanbul. And these are positive steps. People are looking more positive to that. I think throughout, in a very short time, we won't have, we won't even be debating these issues in Turkey. We are moving in a positive direction. Do you have another question? No.
Muslims have control in many countries. There is control. Has your country of Turkey capable of handling the insurgents so that you don't lose control as other countries have?
I don't exactly understood the question, but do we have control on insurgents?
Yes. The reason I'm asking that is that there are many people that have been killed because they're not becoming what they say they want them to be. And they're mostly because of the insurgents. Some of the Muslims I've talked to have said, I agree with you, we would like to tolerate and get along, but the insurgents, if they're in here, we have no choice. So I wonder if Turkey is able to...
No, I mean, we don't have such a problem in Turkey. When you look at the history of Turkey, the understanding of religion in Turkey, not only in the Republican period, but in the Ottoman Empire, we have always been a very tolerant nation towards all faiths. Just one example from more than 500 years ago, when the Catholic Church in Spain started the Inquisition process and started expelling, converting, and killing the Jews in Spain in 1492. It was the Ottoman Sultan who opened the doors of the empire to the Jewish nation. And we are very proud of that chapter of our history. And we can give more examples on that regard. I don't think, yes, there might be some countries, some Muslim countries, which might not have a tolerant attitude towards other faiths. That's the reality of our world today. But certainly Turkey is not one of them.
Thank you, sir.
Do one more?
Yeah, sure. You had a question?
Just would like you to give a summary of the role higher academic institutions are playing in today's Turkey and how many are there?
Yeah, higher academic institutions, of course, they play an important role in terms of, educating future generations. And in Turkey, traditionally, the higher education was within the sphere of state until only 10 years ago. All universities were public, owned by the state, run by the state. But we started private universities, foundation universities, as we call, and they mushroomed in a short span of time. At the beginning, there were, of course, we had a transition period. Some of them were not exactly operating at desired levels. But now, the leading universities of Turkey, among them, most of there are the private universities. Some of them are small, focused on certain areas. Some of them bigger universities, having education in all fields, almost all fields. And yeah, it is. It is an important part of society, the universities, and we have also, for instance, interest from abroad to Turkish universities. At the moment, there are 18,000 foreign students studying in Turkish universities, and vice versa. Of course, we have quite a few students from Turkey studying abroad, like we have tonight, I think, 2 or 3 students from Turkey here studying in the University of Montana. And in fact, overall in US, we are in top 10, I think number 8 in terms of students in the US. We have around 12,000 Turkish students studying in the universities in this country.
What's the tuition process? The rate of tuition?
The state universities, they are almost free. I mean, they take token fees. But the private universities, it also depends on them. Some of them are very expensive. Some of them are more affordable, depending on the quality of the education. But there are, of course, always opportunities for scholarship for successful students.
Well, I'd like to, before you do a round of applause, we began the Consul General's day very early at 7:30, and he hasn't stopped since, so we're very grateful for all of the energy. We do have some Turkish students here, and I wonder if they would stand up so you could see who they are. Yeah, we thank you very much for a very clear and logical and extremely helpful address on Turkey. I think as a result of his remarks, you now see why Turkey plays such an important and valuable role and is and will be an important ally to the United States. We will let the Consul General go. He'll be here for a moment if you want to ask some additional questions. And once again, thank you all for coming. And Mr. Consul General, teşekkür ederim.